This is the Crisscross Show. I'm back, and I'm really, really happy about today's episode because today I have the top 10 NBA teams after week one of the NBA, and as well as the top 5 coaches in the NBA right now. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to rank the top 10 teams in the NBA after week one. So obviously, this is all based off of my opinion and based on what I've seen after week one. I didn't want to rank the teams before because, again, I was going to rank the teams that, obviously like Lakers, Miami, Milwaukee, all those other teams that, the ones that typically at the very beginning of the season are ranked high because of who's on the team and who's not. So today I wanted to rank the top teams based on week one and how I think they fit right now. And, if the playoffs started today, what the top 10 teams would be. So without further ado, let me first go with the honorable mentions. So the honorable mentions, I'm going to say the honorable mentions, and then I'm going to say why. So the Phoenix Suns. The reason why they did not make top 10 is because I haven't seen much of them. They've only played 3 games and they're 2-1. I'm going to obviously put them in the top 10 eventually, but I just need to see how they play a little bit more. We're all still, in all of their performance in the bubble, but, I want to give Phoenix a couple of weeks before I, crack them into the top 10. The San Antonio Spurs, obviously they're playing great basketball. They're 2-1 as well. But I need to see more of them. Okay, like they had a weird off season. They didn't make the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. So I need to see a little bit more from San Antonio before they make my top 10, as well as Utah. They did end up having a pretty expensive off season by paying Donovan Mitchell and then paying Rudy Gobert. They're 2-1 as well, but I need to see a little bit more from them before I can judge. All right, so my top 10 teams, and this is based off of what I've seen and how I think the teams would match up if they were to make the playoffs. So without further ado, number 10, the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are 3-0, and again, their wins are against mediocre teams at best, Memphis, Chicago, and Detroit. I know it's not a lot, but again, the additions that they've had, like Bogdanovich or whatever his last name is from Sacramento last year, obviously Clint Capella's back. Trae Young has been 9 months away from basketball. So I think that the Atlanta Hawks are number 10. Again, that's probably subject to change. I know Atlanta last year started 2-0 and then they went to lose like their next 20 games or something like that. So the Atlanta Hawks are number 10. But again, I do think Trae Young is going to be an elite scorer. I do think he is averaging like 30 points per game in this 3-game season so far. Number 9, the Orlando Magic. I say the Orlando Magic because they did beat Washington twice, and I don't remember the third team that they did play. But they're 3-0, and I think under Steve Clifford, this is like their third year under Steve Clifford. Aaron Gordon, Terrence Ross, Evan Fournier, Cole Anthony. Everyone loves Cole Anthony. I'm still not sold on him. I just think that, when you give an NBA player a lot of shots, he's going to get a lot of points, so he's going to entertain everyone that way. I still need to see a little bit more from him. But I do think, what Orlando's got going for them is going good so far. That's why they crack number 9 for me. I just think everything that they've done, most of the players are back. I was a little bit wrong about them. My preseason predictions, I had them not making the playoffs, or at least being, one of the 9-10 seeds that, will play the play-in. But Orlando will be my number 9. Number 8, the New Orleans Pelicans. Their only loss is to Miami, but they have looked good. I have seen just about all their games. They've only played 3, but I've seen just about all their games. Brandon Ingram is legit, at least in these first 3 games. He's scored over 25 points per game, and I think every game so far. Zion Williamson is quiet. And again, not getting a lot of hype because, he's not a rookie anymore. The media doesn't love him anymore. Lonzo Ball, shooting the ball well. I do think the pieces around those 3 players is great. Still a little young. I do think Stan Van Gundy's a great coach for that team. But, they crack number 8 for me right now. Number 7, the Portland Trail Blazers. I give Portland number 7 because Their only loss is to Utah, but they did beat the Lakers last night, and again, it was a big win for them. They also beat Houston, and CJ McCollum had like 44 points. Gary Trent Jr., 28 points yesterday, I do believe. Damian Lillard had a quiet 30 points. They are lethal on the offensive side. Again, they did play a little bit of defense yesterday, which was great to see. No Carmelo Anthony. They also beat the Lakers without no Carmelo Anthony. But again, early season wins sometimes. A Monday night game, a really great team will kind of mail it in. Just go through the motions in a game. So I can't really take much off of that because it is an early season game. If Portland does this again in the middle of the season to the Clippers, to the Lakers, we'll be talking differently. But as of right now, they will crack my number 7. Number 6, the Milwaukee Bucks, just because an embarrassing loss of New York Knicks by 20 points. They lost 110 to 130. Giannis was playing. I thought Giannis wasn't playing when I first saw it on my phone. I do think that Milwaukee does have early season struggles, but they will eventually catch up. They are number 6 after a week because I don't even remember who their only win is against. But, losing to the New York Knicks is pretty embarrassing within itself. And when we come back, I will give you my top 5. All right, so number 10 was Atlanta. Number 9 was the Orlando Magic. Number 8 was the New Orleans Pelicans. Number 7 was the Portland Trail Blazers. And number 6 was the Milwaukee Bucks. Number 5, the LA Clippers. Now, Paul George at the beginning of the year said that he's back. He's officially healed from his shoulder surgery. And he's ready to play. And then he goes on to lose by 50-something points to the Dallas Mavericks without Kristaps Porzingis. So again, they did fall. They are 2-1. They had 2 pretty good wins against the Lakers, and then I don't know who else they played. So again, they did beat the Lakers on opening night, but again, the Lakers are basically playing catch-up after the first quarter because, it's ring night. You can't really expect much from the champions on ring night because it's so emotional. There's so much stuff going on with that. Players aren't really focused on that. Players are caring about their ring and about all this other stuff. So I can't really take much out of the first game of the season. Last year, I felt like you can because none of the teams are coming off of ring night. But, I will give the Lakers a little bit of a pass and, a little bit of bias right there too. But again, to lose by 50 to the Dallas Mavericks who aren't even all completely healthy, with no Kawhi also, but it's no excuse. I know Paul George tried to throw out an excuse of, we celebrated Christmas the night before because we were on the road for Christmas Day. So, again, don't give me that. Those are excuses. I know some media love to coddle that, but me, I'm not going to coddle that. So, again, an embarrassing loss to the Mavericks leaves them at 5. Number 4, the Indiana Pacers. Sabonis. I'm not going to say his first name because I'm probably going to say it wrong. Averaging 24 points per game. They are 3-0 against Boston, Chicago, and the Knicks. So, one pretty good team that they beat, and then another that, is kind of questionable. But again, Indiana looks pretty good early into the season. I know that, they've got a lot of good pieces, a lot of good, not great pieces, but I do give them number 4 because I do think that this year they're going to actually make some noise in the postseason. Number 3, the Philadelphia 76ers. Their one loss was to Cleveland, and that was because Joel Embiid did not play. They look really good so far. Who knows how long that's going to last? We know how Philadelphia is. They're streaky during the season, but right now they look good. With Joel Embiid, they are 2-0, and they won convincingly their first 2 games. I will give Philadelphia number 3. Number 2, the Brooklyn Nets. I give the Brooklyn Nets the second spot because, again, Kevin Durant in the games he did play looked great. Kyrie Irving is looking great so far. And again, their losses are to the Hornets and against to Memphis. Memphis, obviously, no KD, no Kyrie, and then Spencer Dinwiddie did not play as well. We know Spencer Dinwiddie is out for at least the whole season. Again, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving is a pretty good match so far with 4 games into the season. And, obviously with the exception of them not playing the last game. Number one, the Los Angeles Lakers. And I give them number one because their 2 wins were against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were 2-0 at the time, and as well as the Dallas Mavericks on Christmas. And both their games that they won by like 20 plus points. So, when they do play, they are really, really great. Obviously, with Portland, it was like, is LeBron going to play? Is he not going to play? Anthony Davis coming back. Obviously, losing to the Clippers, they played catch up after the first quarter. So I can't really pin that against them. As much as I pinned everything else against other teams. I was hesitant to give them number one. But as of right now, they are the champions. I give them a slight break off of the first game. Obviously, Portland, it was like, is LeBron going to play? Is he not going to play? It was kind of one of those days. And again, just like last year before the pandemic when they lost to the Brooklyn Nets, a random Tuesday night where they just lost to a team because, who really cared? It was, a regular season after a big weekend of beating the Bucks and the Clippers. They were there, but they weren't really there. So I'm going to give them a pass for that just because I know they typically have done that in the past. A LeBron-led team has typically done that in the past where they just kind of mail in a Tuesday night game and stuff like that. All right, so there you have it, the top 10. Atlanta, Orlando, New Orleans, Portland, Milwaukee, Clippers, Indiana, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and the Lakers. Again, honorable mentions were Phoenix, San Antonio, the Jazz. Those teams obviously did not crack the top 10, but they were, 11, 12, 13. So there you have it. That's my top 10. Up next is the top 5 coaches in the league. I feel like whenever we rank teams, players, we always forget about the coach. The coach is very, very important. Obviously, some players can make any coach work. Obviously, you saw LeBron in his second stint with Cleveland when he made David Blatt work. Obviously, David Blatt came in with a different idea at first, but then LeBron signed, and then, it was all about, hey, we expect you to carry this team to a championship. So, again, my top 5 coaches, just because as a coach myself, I like rating coaches, and I like seeing how different coaches, plan and scheme. So number 5 is going to go to Frank Vogel. Again, he is the current NBA championship coach. He's known for his defense. Obviously, if you've watched basketball in 2011, 12, 13, 14, you saw that Vogel led the Pacers team. They were always top 10 in defense. They were pretty good, gave LeBron some problems in his days in Indiana. So I do give Frank Vogel number 5. Number 4, I'm going to say Monty Williams. And this is why I say Monty Williams over Frank Vogel. Because when Monty Williams came to Phoenix last year, Phoenix was a mess, right? Everyone laughed at Phoenix. Everyone said, oh, Phoenix is this, Phoenix is that. But he changed the culture of the team. Obviously, they were under 500 for the regular season. And obviously, in the bubble, they were 8-0. But I do think that he is a great coach. He's obviously a new coach. And I think that, this year, Phoenix is going to be top 4, the top 4 teams in the West. I really, really do believe that, and I do think he's going to be a huge contribution to that. Obviously, it helps having Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Chris Paul. Number 3, Eric Spoelstra. He goes under the radar. Obviously, last year, the media gave him a lot of, attention because he was in the finals. But he doesn't get a lot of attention because when LeBron left, the Heat were just a 500 team, riding a 500 team. You almost felt like you forgot about Eric Spoelstra. Like, nobody really cared about Eric Spoelstra. And obviously this year, people finally saw what he was about. He was one of the coaches that was using zone defense a lot this year. He used the zone defense. He uses it effectively. He knows when to use it. He just doesn't use it just to use it, like a lot of coaches have used it last year. But I do think that Eric Spoelstra is a really great coach. I've always liked him, even when LeBron was there. I always thought he was a great coach. Obviously, he knows the game really, really well. And he's been with the Heat organization for a lot of years. Number 2, I'm going to go with Nick Nurse. Just because, I've seen a couple of podcasts on him. I've seen a lot of his different methods. He's been literally almost all around the world coaching. I do think he did coach in England for a little bit, of the United Kingdom. And then he made his way to, obviously, the NBA with Toronto as an assistant, and then obviously promoted and then won a championship. He was one of the few coaches to introduce or to use box and one in the NBA Finals. So imagine that, a coach using the box and one in the NBA Finals. Also, he does use a lot of different type of schemes in the NBA with his defenses. He is pretty creative with his offensive plays. And obviously, I'm going to cut him some slack. He just lost Ibaka and he just lost Gasol. So again, I know Toronto's 0-2, and people are wondering, like, why would you give him number 2? But again, wait on it. I have him finishing 6th in the East. Just wait on it. It's gonna come around. I guarantee it. Number 1, Brad Stevens. And again, a lot of people are gonna knock on Brad Stevens this year if he doesn't make it to the NBA Finals. But he's had a lot to deal with. When he became the head coach for Boston a couple years ago after Doc Rivers left, he had a really bad team around him. And they didn't make the playoffs, but then the next year they were competing, and I do think they did make the 8th seed, and then they were an 8th seed again, and then they were, like the 2nd seed, 1st seed, and then, they've trended up from there. And he comes from Butler, and he coached the Butler team with Gordon Hayward, and obviously that's why Gordon Hayward came around the first time. But I do think he's had a lot to deal with, a lot of injuries. Obviously, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie Irving, getting Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, making all those pieces work. And again, it doesn't look great right now. But again, if you've noticed, the top 4 coaches, or at least, and I'm forgetting Mike Malone from Denver, but the top 3 coaches, three of the top 5 coaches I have on my list, they were all in the finals in the bubble. So Brad Stevens, Eastern Conference Finals, Eric Spoelstra, Eastern Conference Finals, Frank Vogel, Western Conference Finals. Again, to be in the bubble, to have that mental, mindset to finish the season, to be trapped basically in Orlando for a couple of weeks or a couple of months to, kind of reel your team back together. That had to be a lot. And again, those coaches, I feel like, have had the most impact, can make any player great and stuff like that. So that's why I give Brad Stevens number 1. Again, the team he got in Boston wasn't great, and he made it great. And a lot of people are kind of picking on him now because they're all like, well, where's your NBA Finals appearance? Well, again, he started from scratch, and he's worked his way up. He's made the Eastern Conference Finals twice in his 7 years there. Obviously, once he probably could have even made the finals, but again, he was in the way of LeBron James. So, we all know how that worked out in the East for 8 years. So those are my top 5 coaches. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Some honorable mentions are Greg Popovich, Doc Rivers, Mike Budd from Milwaukee, and as well as Mike Malone from Denver. So those are my top 5 coaches: Frank Vogel, Monty Williams, Eric Spoelstra, Nick Nurse, and Brad Stevens. All right, so this does conclude the end of my episode. Obviously, next week I will be back with my week 2 of the NBA Top 10. Some videos to come. I do have a chicken nuggets episode where I did make some chicken nuggets. Not the best, but I did make some. And also another chicken and mayonnaise video that's coming real soon. Those videos are done. I just need to edit them and do all the other stuff. So until next time.